From his Central Texas Command Center, deep behind enemy lines, the information war continues. It's Alex Jones and the GCN Radio Network.
We're live. Here we are. 30th day of January, 2011 on this Sunday edition. We'll be here for the next 2 hours as we are every Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. In studio, Dr. Andrew Wakefield will be joining us. He was in just a few weeks ago in studio because he's an Austinite. And the doctor of the stomach and the intestines, I won't give you the technical name, will be joining us again in studio. He, of course, exposed many years ago the connection between autism and the MMR vaccine, also Crohn's disease and different types of vaccines. And they wrote hit pieces for the British Medical Journal against him. And it turns out that is more propaganda, and he's demanded a retraction. Dr. Wakefield demands retraction from British Medical Journal after documents prove innocence from allegations of vaccine autism data fraud. And of course, they never had any evidence. They just ran around like chickens with their heads cut off, screaming fraud. And now in over 30 countries, they've duplicated exactly what Dr. Andrew Wakefield found going back close to 2 decades ago. So he'll be joining us in studio today. Of course, he's been saying it was a fraud from day one. We know that autism was 1 in 25,000, and then 1 in 2,000, and then 1 in 1,000, 1 in 200, 1 in 168, 1 out of 96, and now in boys, 1 out of 54. And that's the federal government's own admissions. The brain damage is ultra massive, and I've had countless other medical doctors on, including brain surgeons, neurologists, and others, finding the same inflammation hitting the stomach and the intestines hitting the brain. So, and it turns out a lot of these big universities, they were already aware. That's what the new information is. Before Wakefield ever did these studies, it turns out that many years before and then right before, major universities basically did research and found exactly what he found. But the British Medical Journal is running with what a reporter has come out and said that Wakefield just made it all up with no evidence. So we're going to be breaking that down. Obviously, we're going to spend the first hour talking about the situation in Egypt and all of the geopolitical ramifications of this. When you look at the Zbigniew Brzezinskian geopolitical grand chessboard model, there is a lot of evidence and outright admissions right now that the opposition is led and commanded by George Soros, NATO, and the Pentagon. In fact, there's no doubt that Mohammed el-Baradei is a globalist stooge. That is not even debated. In fact, that's all over London Telegraph, Associated Press. They're pushing it like it's credentials for the guy. But there's something more sophisticated going on at work here, and I'm going to break that down first when we come back from break. Also, it's been an illustration of how easy the internet can be shut down. That's what we've witnessed, not just in China in the last few years, but now in a single day, almost total internet shutdown by the Egyptian government. We've got confirmations out of Al Jazeera and many other publications that are respected that the police and military are involved in the looting under orders. We'll break down why governments tend to do that. There's a lot of amazing information here to cover. Obviously, the 150-point drop in the U.S. stock market, even bigger drops in the Saudi Arabian stock market. The rebellions are spreading to Yemen, Jordan, Tunisia, as you know, already fell a week and a half ago. And that was due to some WikiLeaks releases, which we know is government connected. I'm going to try to go over all the angles of this when we come back and the economic ramifications of it and how the globalists are going to try to trigger a false revolution in this country when their bellwethers, when their weather vanes gauge that we're about to have a real revolution. This is very important. We're going to break it down.
You've heard Alex explain how the Silver Lungs generator infuses the respiratory system with your self-produced colloidal silver solutions, yet many are unaware of the entire function of the Silver Lungs system and how it has been designed to deliver your silver solutions anywhere in or on the body. My name is Mario Cifaldi, and I'm the developer of the Silver Lungs generator. Not only does the Silver Lungs system produce endless colloidal and ionic silver solutions, it also comes equipped with the proper applicators and devices needed to deliver your silver solutions directly to key target areas. This includes the eyes, ears, nose, lungs, topically to the skin, and orally for the digestive system. Be sure to watch our new 7-minute video tour of the Silver Lungs system at www.silverlungs.com to learn more about how the Silver Lungs system works. As well, we are always ready to answer any questions you may have. That's www.silverlungs.com.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Thank you for joining us, my friends. Very important worldwide broadcast as we attempt to awaken humanity to the globalist social engineers that are openly setting up an unelected private corporate planetary government that is openly waging war on the family, private property, and basic liberties in their move to consolidate a collectivist planet where only the ultra-rich are allowed to own property and where the general public are literally brain-numbed, drugged out, servile zombies. And that's only part of the next phase towards forced world population reduction. Now, obviously, we're going to be breaking down the situation in Egypt here in the first hour. And then gastroenterologist Dr. Andrew Wakefield will be joining us in studio. He pointed out a year ago when a media reporter first claimed that his research connecting vaccines to autism, claiming that was fraudulent research with no evidence. I read those reports, and now Wakefield has demanded a retraction because it turns out that Wakefield was not the first person to do this research and find this. I already knew that from researching it myself. That decades before, years before, and even months before, major prestigious medical institutions, including in England, in government studies, found what Wakefield found. They've just chosen Wakefield to try to politically lynch him and politically decimate him, destroy him, so that then other scientists and people are scared away from the research. Kind of like they've now released, and it's been hacked, the UN over the last 20 years trying to persecute research scientists, climatologists, and others who have been researching and proving the fact that man-made global warming is a fraud. And you get the internal UN documents, and it turns out that they talk about how to intimidate people, how to get their funding cut, how to lie about them, and how to cover up the UN's own knowledge that we're actually cooling for the last 15 years. That's all now public for over a year. And it's exactly what they're doing to Wakefield. And it turns out this reporter's connected and works for Rupert Murdoch. Rupert Murdoch's on the board of one of the big vaccine makers. And this was basically done in a desperate attempt to stop the incredible tsunami of awakening to just how dangerous vaccines are. But it's too late. I mean, you could open the newspaper any day and read about Australian government stops giving flu vaccines because of deaths and increased brain disorders, narcolepsy, epilepsy. The list goes on and on and on. And so the truth is coming out. Same thing in England. Headline, government orders stop to H1N1 shots after 10-fold increase in seizures in under 5-year-olds. Well, I mean, we've always known what these vaccines do. A certain amount of kids have an autoimmune response. Their brain swells up. And a lot of times after they go into the convulsions, they don't ever come back. I mean, they sit in the corner and are hardcore brain damage. They call it autistic. There's a full spectrum. You know, every person is different, but we know that males absorb through the blood-brain barrier toxins worse than women. But we got Dr. Andrew Wakefield Joining us, Dr. Wakefield demands retractions from BMJ after documents prove innocence from allegations of vaccine autism data fraud. Oh, it turns out there were a bunch of other scientists, including government scientists, that had already found exactly what he found. Of course, Wakefield was in here a few weeks ago, and I said that on air. I said, Dr. Wakefield, you know that they've, since the 30s, knew about this. And he goes, well, yes, there is some research to that. And I said, no. Specifically, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, you didn't really discover this stuff. You just found what countless other scientists had found. It's just the media never really promotes it or pushes it. And again, they've chosen him because he's well-spoken and because he became very successful exposing it to try to destroy him. And as I said a few weeks ago here on air, I said, this is the secret. And now, of course, the research has been done, and there it is. And again, I'm no rocket scientist. I'm no gastroenterologist. I've just interviewed quite a few over the years and countless brain surgeons and neurologists and endocrinologists and virologists. And I also know about the Rockefeller Brothers Foundation funding in the 30s and 40s dealing with vaccines that are given for one reason but really manipulate the gut flora and then cause brain damage. Bill and Melinda Gates are heavily invested in that now. The treatments to help you from the scourge of it, just like they're heavily invested in weather modification. So again, I'm just a collector of news and data. And so I'm fully aware of all this. He'll be joining us coming up in the next hour live in studio. And it's another big hoax, just like there was the hoax that global warming was real, or the hoax that the H1N1 was deadly last year, or all these other hoaxes about WMDs. It's another corporate media hoax, and that's why they're losing all of their credibility, because now we have the alternative media to challenge the dinosaur, dying, corporate, government-paid-for media. What came out 3 months ago? That over $10 billion in just the previous year had been funneled to U.S. media, namely NBC, and others, for fake news. Your bailout money, your tax money, goes to Rachel Maddow. Now, of course, under Bush, it came out, and the media's expert only focusing on a few cases. They focused on Armstrong Williams and $250,000 that he was given by Bush to go out and push the federalization of child education. But it turns out billions was spent. Why did the media focus on Armstrong Williams? Because if they can burn a little guy, then nobody looks at the big guys. And the buying of news on radio, TV, print media is just off the charts. I can honestly tell you that I am the only media outlet I know of that does not take this money. I am the only media outlet that I know of. There may be others, but my radio show is the only place that when something is a sponsor, I tell you it is a sponsor. I'd say half the news you listen to, radio, TV, print, half of it was completely paid for as a propaganda placement. I coined that term 12 years ago, and the last two, MSNBC and others, and ABC, as they knew that this was starting to come out, they said, oh, we are paid by the government and private corporations for messages in the sitcoms, in the dramas, in the news. We call it behavior placement, but it's for your own good. It's for your own good, America. Now, you say, well, great, the alternative media is growing by leaps and bounds. 2 years ago, we passed the Rubicon. Gallup and others put out major studies showing that, again, 2 years ago, we passed the line where the alternative media, 3-to-1, is more respected than mainstream media and has a larger audience in the aggregate. And it's an exponential growth curve. So the system is panicking. Now, what's seen as alternative media by the dinosaur propaganda media, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, people like that, Meet the Press, all those different programs, your old dinosaur newspapers that are dying because nobody wants to read their propaganda. What they're doing is they've got a, quote, internet kill switch that's